systems such as Paytm, they came up because they saw an opportunity in this. So and as an entrepreneur, you really need to see an opportunity in everything, whether it's a good situation, whether it's a bad situation. So that is another very important aspect of an entrepreneur. Second is moving on to the mindset of an entrepreneur. These are certain qualities of an entrepreneur. Right now, when we talk about the mindset of an entrepreneur, there are elements of leadership also involved. So see, what happens is, I see a problem, but there are suppose 10 other people who see that particular problem, but nobody thought of solving that problem. Nobody took that lead to solve that problem. But if I, as an entrepreneur, will have to solve that problem, I will have to take the entrepreneurial lead. I need to have that element of leadership within me to start solving that problem. So that is why this element of entrepreneurial leadership is very important for any entrepreneur to start. Then the next aspect is continuum of entrepreneurial activity. This is again is very important, because what also happens is that we tend to do a business, and then we realize that we are not making profits, we are not doing big, we tend to shut down, we do something else, we go back to our jobs. But then to be an entrepreneur, I really need to continue the activity of entrepreneurship. I really need to continue my business, whatever I'm doing. There has to be this element of continuum in that. Then only, it becomes a valid business model. Then only it becomes sustainable. Then only it becomes scalable. So there is again this very important element of continuum of entrepreneurial activity. Then the next is balanced strategic positioning. It is again very important, because what happens is there are two things which drive me. First is my passion. Second is my abilities and my skills. But there has to be a matchmaking between them. My passion should be aligned with my skills, or on the other note, my skills and my abilities should be aligned with my passions. So to be an entrepreneur, when you're trying to solve some problem, you really need to understand, am I, capable enough? Do I possess the right kind of skills required to solve this problem? Maybe I am 100 times passionate to solve this problem, but until and unless I have the right kind of skills to solve this problem, to develop this product, I will not be able to do it. So there has to be this marriage between my passions and between my skills and abilities, and also then comes my managerial abilities to manage my startup and my business. This is again a very important aspect. So this is about the entrepreneurial mindset. Now, an extended version of entrepreneurial mindset is also entrepreneurial culture, because there's a very important role of ecosystem in developing and nurturing entrepreneurship. Like whatever is happening in India for last 5 to 7 years, everybody has started talking about entrepreneurs. Everybody is talking about startups now. Government has come forward to support startups. Ministries are setting up startup incubation centers. What is all that? It is just that we are trying to create a conducive startup ecosystem. Like today, we are talking about startups and entrepreneurship. This might not have happened 5 years back, because 5 years back, there was not a conducive entrepreneurial ecosystem, but now we have a conducive entrepreneurial ecosystem, conducive entrepreneurial environment to support startups. So then to nurture entrepreneurship, this conducive entrepreneurial ecosystem is also very important. So that is about entrepreneurial mindset.
Okay, Dr. Pallavi, you talked about the support thing which you came in the lecture part. So I just wanted to know, what is the importance and how important is this entrepreneurship support, which is should be extended for the startup? How much important does that play? What role does that play?
Sure. So when I say that startup support, entrepreneurship support is super important for any startup, I am definitely not exaggerating or not overemphasizing. This is the absolute reality. Because see, everything grows in an environment. When we have a garden, right? We plant small seeds, but seeds only grow when they get the right kind of environment, when they get the right kind of sunlight, right amount of water. right amount of air and all that nutrients. So that is how a startup is. When I conceive an idea, when I get, okay, this is something that I really want to do. This is the problem that I'm trying to solve. So this looks as a huge problem to me. And I need people around me. I need mentors. I need physical space. I need technology support to develop a solution to solve that problem. So this incubation support, startup support, entrepreneurship support is very, very important. It is basically, it gives a hand holding to startup, because 0 to 1 journey of any startup is very, very difficult. Beyond 1, it's actually a little easier, because then your business models are validated, you know what your market is. But when you start, from that time to the time when you actually go to market, so that is typically a 0 to 1 journey of a startup, which involves pre-ideation stage, ideation stage, developing of a prototype, pre-revenue stage. So all these stages are the 0 to 1 stage of a startup, and this is pretty difficult for any startup to go from one stage to another. And that is where the support comes in. Because see, there are a lot of entrepreneurs. How is this entrepreneurial culture thriving in USA and other places? Because there are entrepreneurs, existing and established entrepreneurs, supporting and handholding new entrepreneurs. So that is when their risk-taking ability is increased. So when you talk about this support, it is very important, and incubation support is one of the most important support amongst all this support, because it actually gives support in the 0 to 1 journey of the startup. And then comes the accelerator support. Over to you, Dr. Tanu.
Okay, but then how is it like incubator different from accelerator, and where and how to reach out to this incubator support?
Right. So I will. So before elaborating on that, I would really want to talk about a bit more on the startup support. Wherein, so there are different kinds of startup supports available for a startup. So first of this support is incubation support. Other one is funding support. Then next is marketing access. Then access to mentors, and then access to business channels, market channels. So all these are the different kinds of support that a business requires. Then again, there's one important support, which is infrastructure support, which any startup requires. So and it could come from mix of government and private players. So government these days in India, it is just putting in a lot of money and resources to set up startup incubation centers, to bring out these resources to the startup, so that a number of startups have access to this right kind of support. And all this begins at a startup incubation center, because what happens at a startup incubation center is that all this support comes at a single place. So suppose I am a startup, I have this idea that I want to I want to develop one particular medical device for sugar detection, for example. So I am giving you this example because this is what one of my startup is doing. So I'll just take you through. So I conceived the idea that people are facing this issue, particular issue, that they are not able to get the right sugar check at home with these handy machines that we have. These are medical equipment devices which we have to check sugar and blood pressure. So now what is happening is when you check sugar, there are these small strips which which is required to put into this machine. So what happens is these strips, they are loosely packed. They are kept open and they get exposed to the air and they get oxidized. So because of this, the accuracy of this check decreases. So now one of our startups came up with a solution called sugar dispensing strip machine. So they started with this because they realized that there is a problem. There is this existing problem that people are facing. And then they came up with a solution that, we can perhaps we can solve this problem. Nobody is very sure that, whether we can solve this problem or not, but we attempt to solve this problem. What is important is that you take this leap of faith and you make an attempt to solve this problem. So they tried solving this problem. They make this prototype. They came up with this prototype, which at the first go didn't work out. And then they continuously worked on the prototype, building of the prototype, evaluating, re-evaluating, rebuilding of the prototype. And then they came to this quite a final version of the prototype. It's still not a final version, but a good version of a prototype. So there are a number of resources required in the process. They cannot build a prototype at home. They require technology support. They require access to labs. They require access to mentors. For that matter, you would call technology mentors who would help them in making that product. Then they might require strategy mentors. They might require a lot of other experts on board. Then going ahead, they might also require a space, office space to sit and do their work, to research, to build a prototype, to build a team. So, and these all activities a startup cannot do because it is very thin in terms of resources. A startup cannot afford to hire experts. A startup cannot afford to hire a team of scientists and engineers to build this particular prototype. A startup cannot afford to buy a 30,000 per month bucks of office to be there and get that kind of infrastructure. So then they came to us. Now they're incubated with us, and these all support is what we extended to them. We provided a co-working space to them, which typically an incubation center extends. Incubation center has a lot of co-working space area wherein a lot of startups come in and share resources. So, there might be office cubicles available to them. There might be internet facilities available to them. There might be a lot of other human resource available to them on a shared basis. So this is what a co-working space is and how incubation centers extend this co-working space to their startups. Then incubation centers have a board of mentors and board of experts. And depending upon the requirement of a startup, we connect the right kind of mentor, right kind of subject matter expert to a startup. And then they handhold and they guide this particular startup to develop a prototype, to develop a business model, to develop a revenue model. So typically in the development of a prototype, the role of a technology expert comes in. But when you develop a business model, when you develop a revenue model for your business, that is wherein the role of a strategy mentor comes in. So it's a combination of both these mentors and mentorship that a startup can avail at an incubation center. Beyond that, a lot of incubation centers do demo days. So what particularly happens in a demo days is that they invite the potential customers. So suppose for this particular startup, we have a lot of tie-ups with these pharmaceutical companies, a lot of these companies which build these medical devices. We may invite them and have our startup to pitch to these companies. And then if they like it, they may take up the prototype development to them, and they may put in funding support, extend funding support to the startup. So then the other aspect is this connection between a startup and between the potential customers and investors. So an incubation center on that note provides market access and also provides funding access. So when you connect a startup with the right kind of potential customer, right kind of target market, you extend a marketing access to the startup. And when you connect a startup with an investor, for that matter, it could be a venture capital fund. For that matter, it could be an angel investor. It could be some government grant. It could be an equity investor, and anyone could be, invest in that particular startup. So when you connect this particular startup with the funding source, you are providing funding access to these startups. So it's a holistic approach towards business development. It's a holistic approach towards startup support. So to reiterate the same, I would say incubation extends co-working spaces, that is infrastructure support, extends strategic support in terms of how to build a business model, how to go into the market, how to scale, how to sustain your business. Then next is extending subject matter expertise then providing market access, and providing funding access. So these are a few verticals under which you as a startup can seek support from incubation centers. And now what is good about incubation centers is that they do not, burn your pockets when they support you, because most of these incubation centers are supported by some larger organization. For that matter, it could be a government organization, it could be a central government, state government, or it could be some corporate supported incubation center. So there are a lot of grants also coming to these incubation centers, and then they are, you also have access to these seed grants available in the incubation center to further your prototype, to pilot your product into the market. And then in some of the cases, incubation centers might take a small amount of equity from your business. So they also extend soft loans. So that is one kind of funding support that they provide. And the other aspect is a very small amount of equity that they, take in your business in terms of this. So this is about incubation center. So basically the role of incubation center comes in from where you conceive an idea to the stage you actually go to market. So from ideation stage to your pre-revenue, your go-to market or your market stage. This is where the role of the incubation center comes in. But then when you have actually reached out in the market, when you've started doing business, you started having customers, now is the time to scale. So when you think of scaling, you go to a startup accelerator and not a startup incubator. So this is the major difference between incubation center and a startup accelerator program. Incubation centers primarily work on the sustainability of any startup. They make you sustainable. And once you become sustainable, once you go to market, once you start having your customers, and suppose you are in the market for 1 to 2 years now, and you have for example, say have 5 crores turnover now. Now is the stage to scale up. Now you are either looking to go international, exploring new markets, or you are thinking to go deeper down into the markets wherein you already are. For example, as of now, if I'm serving in India, I'm serving in 24 states, or say 20 states for that matter. Now, if I want to scale up, I might think that I will penetrate into the same market. So this is market penetration. I will penetrate into the same market and I will go to a lot more states in India itself. But now when I talk about market expansion, I might need to go to new markets. I might need to go to international markets to explore that market. So when you're talking about market penetration, when you're talking about market expansion, when you're talking to scale up, that is where and when the role of startup accelerators come in. So typically at an accelerator, they give you with a lot of funding support. To have the right kind of funds to scale up. They connect you with the entrepreneurs in the same industry for that matter, so that they can guide you on how to grow and scale your business. So and then accelerator take a little more equity from your business than what an incubator takes. Incubator might and might not take equity, but accelerators generally do take equity in your business. And then they help you scale. So this is, the kind of difference between incubation and acceleration support. Incubation support is 0 to 1. Accelerator support comes in beyond 1. So this is primarily about incubation and accelerator support. So on that note, if I would also want to add is, where do you find these incubation centers? Yes, so these, right, I think that is what you primarily also asked in the question. So these incubation centers are generally available at universities, because government is supporting these incubators at universities to promote young entrepreneurs to come into the business, to promote our youth to become job creators, to create their own businesses rather than just running around packages. So that is how these incubation centers are creating this entrepreneurial culture in universities. So what generally happens is, for example, say IIHMR University, wherein I had this particular incubation center. So IIHMR University is a public health university. We have courses on public health, we have courses on hospital management, health management, pharmaceuticals management, and development management. So now here, this particular incubation center takes and supports startups in health, fitness, wellness, and medical domain. Similarly, there are other incubation centers. Suppose there is this agriculture university. So then the incubation center will primarily take and support startups which are agri-based, which are agri-tech startups or agri-based startups. So depending upon the expertise of a university, the incubation center generates and develops its expertise, and it is how it should be also. So that you have the right kind of knowledge, you have the right kind of resources to support these startups. So these are one kind of sector specific startups, wherein if suppose I am somebody who is looking to start something into wellness domain. For example, I am thinking to start my own platform for extending healthy diet support, or thinking to suppose there is this startup called Healthify Me. So it is make the idea here is to extend health insights to people, extend health plans, make them lead healthier lives. So then I might choose to go in case I am the startup and I am trying to do this, then I might go to a health specific startup incubation center and seek their support. Whether on the other basis, if suppose I am a startup, I am trying to develop some organic product. Suppose I am trying to develop these healthy bars, or I am trying to develop some vegan processed foods, then the place for me to go is at an agri specific incubation center. So this is when we talk about sector specific incubation center. Then there are certain incubation centers which are sector agnostic. So they generally support startups from all sectors, because they might have multiple courses in the universities, and as a standalone incubation centers, they might have that kind of network to support startups in multiple sectors. So those are sector agnostic incubation centers. So you will find support for medical startups also, you will find support for agri startups also, you will find support for education startups also, craft startups, and lot more kind of startups in one particular incubation center. So they provide you resources such as co-working spaces, infrastructure support, mentorship support, diagnostic panels, mentoring clinics. So these are all what a sector agnostic incubation center extends. And then when you talk about sector specific incubation centers, they have specific mentors from health, say from agri, from edtech, whatever the area of expertise is, whatever the area of operations is, they will have mentors specific to that domain. And apart from that, they will have strategy mentors who will guide you on your business strategies. So depending upon the support which is extended by an incubation center, and then it is also, the kind of understanding between a startup and an incubation center. A lot more time what happens is, one particular startup, it may reach out to one incubation center and it may like it and would want to get incubated there. Because the incubation team and the startup, they are on the same page, they are on the same vision, and they share the same kind of vision for this particular startup. And similarly, I might be another startup and I might go to the same incubation center, but I might not want myself to get incubated there, because I might not share the vision that that particular startup incubation center has for me. So I as a startup, when I'm thinking to get incubated and at any incubation center, it is very important that I talk to the team of that incubation center. I talk to that incubation team. I talk to them that how do they see my startup growing? How do they envision my startup after 3 years? And if I think they are on the same page with what I have thought for my startup, I might think to get incubated at this particular incubation center. But in case I think that there is this misalignment between the incubation team and between the founder of the startup, then I should generally not get myself incubated at this incubation center. So I might go to some other incubation center. So as of now in India, we have close to 800 incubation centers. Some are sector agnostic, some are sector specific, some are standalone incubation centers, which are not necessarily a part of some university, but most of them are a part of some university. So depending upon my desires, my wants from an incubation center, I may choose from multiple incubation centers available. Also, another important aspect is now because of COVID, a lot of most of the incubation centers have started running virtual cohorts, virtual incubation programs. But then before COVID, what also happens is I generally tend to go to the incubation center, which is near my vicinity, which is from where I want to start my business. So there is this element of local, entrepreneurship also, that has been the major deciding factor. But now post-COVID, most of the incubation centers are now having virtual incubation programs. So maybe I'm based out of Jaipur, but I can be a part of some incubation center based in Mumbai. And I might be a part of the virtual cohort there. So now this is also an option. So please do not restrict yourself to your vicinity, to your city, to your state. You have, a whole of the India to explore. You rather have, even some other countries wherein they have incubation centers and they take international startups. Like we have some German startups registered with us, and we are providing virtual incubation support to them. So nowadays, this local element is not very important. What is required is that this incubation team understands, and they are on the same page. They are on the same wavelength as of the founders of the startup. This is very, very important, because then what happens is if this vision does not match, you are stuck. You have lost 1 or 1.5 years of your startup, and then you start all over again. You graduate from this incubation center, and then again you're lost. You really do not know what to do about it. And then you go to some other incubation center to find support. You talk to a number of people. So it is very important that before getting incubated at any incubation center, talk to the incubation team. Do let them know what you expect from them, and do let yourself know that what they expect out of you. And then second very important thing is to understand the pivot access change. So what is this pivot access change for any startup? So I've been talking about various stages of startups. I've been talking about that about 0 to 1 journey of the startup. So I, as a startup, when I conceived this idea, I have not yet started working on my idea. So this is a pre-ideation stage, wherein I have conceived the idea, but I have not started working on it. I have not researched about it. Then when I start researching about it, I start, validating my idea. That is the ideation stage. Idea put into action is ideation. So now I have actually started working on the idea which I have. Then the next is proof of concept, which is also called POC stage. It is the stage wherein I develop the proof of the concept. I develop the proof of my idea. I try to research about the market, and I try to validate whether this idea that I'm working on, will it work or will it not work. That is the proof of concept stage. Then moving on to the next stage, it is the prototyping stage. So once you have the POC of your idea, once you have the POC on your solution, you start working on developing your product, whether it's a product, it's a platform, it's a service, it could be anything, but you start developing the solution. So that is a prototyping stage. Then the next stage is your go-to-market stage, your pilot stage. So once you have some kind of prototype with you, when you have the MVP with you, which is a minimum viable product. So when you have this MVP of the prototype, you start piloting your product. You go to one target market, you see whether customers are accepting my prototype or not. Are they receptive enough to, have my product with them or not? So that is a pilot stage. And then when you think that people are receptive enough of your product, when the people are accepting your product or your service in the market, you actually go to market with a better and redefined version of your prototype. That is a go to market stage. So, at all these stages, you need a different kind of incubation support. You cannot have a startup to give the same kind of support at the incubation, at the ideation stage, and the same kind of support at the go to market stage. You need a different kind of mentors, you need different kind of funding, you need different kind of support from an incubation center. So make sure that this incubation center is committed enough to have a pivot access change in your startup. So say when your incubation period is 1 year, you are incubated for 1 year. Your target should be that if I have started from an ideation stage, I should at least reach to the prototype stage or maybe a pilot stage. So basically this incubation center should help you in the pivot access change of your startup. And that is how you measure the fruitfulness of the incubation extended by any incubation center. And that is very important to startups, because what I see these days is, being on the other side, being on the incubation side, number of startups apply to number of applications which these incubation centers roll out. And then after getting selected, they have just no idea on, what kind of support do they expect from incubation centers, and then, what are the basics of incubation center. They are incubated at multiple incubation centers at the same time, and every incubation center is telling them to follow a different kind of strategy. And then it gets very confusing on the part of the startup to soak all that. So as a startup, it is very important for you to choose the right incubation center, to talk to the incubation center about the pivot access change in your startup, to understand how would you measure the success of the incubation process, which is extended to you. So these are certain parameters against which a startup could really introspect their incubation journey. And these are certain parameters also upon which an incubation center should measure the success of their particular incubation center. That how many startups have they supported, how many startups they have helped in the pivot access change, how many startups have actually go out in the market. So these are certain parameters of success and measuring your success in the incubation space. But it's very different for the accelerator. In accelerator, it's all about scaling up. So when you reach to the accelerator stage, you talk about the valuation of your startup, whether this particular accelerator has helped in increasing and enhancing the valuation of your startup. Say suppose when you join this particular accelerator, the valuation of your business is say 10 crores. So whether this accelerator is helping you to grow from 10 crores of valuation to 100 crores of valuation. So, and of course, it's very startup specific also. It is also very specific to what kind of business are you doing, but you really need to see some value addition in that. So it is all about how this incubation thing works, and what parameters you should look into while being incubated at any incubation center.
Okay, that's wonderful. You have made all this so comprehensive and so relatable and easy and motivated all of us to become like what we call as Atmanirbhar Bharat. So
Right.
just given a boost that if you have an idea, the entire whole world is an oyster. That is
Right,
something which
absolutely.
you have conveyed, and I think a lot of students and people might be motivated to begin, because you have made everything seem so simple, easy, relatable, and a person who has no idea in a layman now I think has confidence to approach an incubator.
Right.
And come to you or any incubator center.
Right.
So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Dr. Pallavi. It was a wonderful session, very informative, very motivating, and I'm sure everyone must have achieved a lot from it. So I really thank you from my side, from the entire Nirwan University, Jaipur's behalf. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Everyone
Thank you
must
so
have
much.
achieved a lot from it. So I really thank you from my
Thank you so much for having me here. It is I'm sorry, there was some disturbance. Thank you so much for having me here. And it is, of course, my great pleasure to talk about incubation centers and to help students become job creators, become entrepreneurs, because what we need is we need more and more entrepreneurs. We need more and more job creators. We need more and more problem seers and solvers. So in case you need any more support on how to reach out to incubation centers, what incubation centers should you reach out to, or any kind of understanding on this, you can feel free to reach out to me. And you can also just Google incubation support, and you will get number of details about the incubation centers that are available in India. And just keep certain things in mind which I have told you as an entrepreneur. And just make sure that idea is important, but execution of idea is very important. It is the time to execute your idea. Yes. So in case you have an idea, in case you have recognized the problem, do try to solve that problem now. This is the time, and this is the best time for any entrepreneur to start. So all my best wishes to all the aspiring and established entrepreneurs, and thank you so much for having me here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pallavi. With the mentors like you, I think everyone can aim and aspire to be an entrepreneur. Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tanu.
Before we end this session, I would like to talk also about the next upcoming webinar which we are going to host. It will be, I hope the screen is visible. It is based on climatic change, meaning, evidences, causes, consequences, and measures. So we'll be having Professor Seema Rani from BHU deliberating upon the climatic change. It's a think tank webinar series. We tried to bring diverse topics and leaders on the platform to share their views. Today's session was wonderful. And again, a big thanks to Dr. Pallavi for sharing her insights and motivating us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Ravi, as well, for having me here, and to all the Nirwan University team. It's my proud privilege to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, everyone, for being here with us.
So till we meet again, all the best and take care.